sun hung low over the hills, painting the sky in a dull gold that was already fading into gray. The wind smelled of cold iron, of rain that hadn't yet arrived. On the old path, cutting through the fields, a man walked alone. His name was Jacob Stein, and for years he hadn't looked anyone in the eyes for longer than a greeting dot asterisk. His house stood apart from the road, half hidden between birch trees and a fallen stone wall. The windows were blind with dust, the door warped, but the roof still held, like Jacob himself old, but unbroken. He wasn't unkind, just a man whom life had taught silence. His wife, Anna, died 10 winters ago. Pneumonia. She had loved the quietest sound of rain on the roof, the smell of freshly baked bread. After her death, the house had become empty, though nothing inside had changed. Jacob had kept his promise to her. He never left. But staying isn't the same as living. That evening, the wind carried something different. Voices, not loud, but fractured, exhausted. Jacob stopped, raised a hand to shade his eyes, and saw 3 figures climbing the hill. 2 men and a woman on foot, their coats torn, their boots caked with mud. Refugees, he thought. He'd heard talk in town that the war in the east was burning everything again. As they came closer, saw their faces, hollow, weary, foreign. The oldest of them spoke first. His German was heavy, like a stone in the mouth. "We seek shelter. Only for the night." Jacob hesitated. No one had asked to come in for years. And yet, he nodded. "Come in. It'll be cold soon." Inside, there was no fire. He lit a lamp, its weak glow throwing trembling shadows on the walls. The younger man helped the woman to a chair she could barely stand. Her face was pale, her eyes distant. Jacob brought water, bread, and a blanket. The gestures came from a part of him that hadn't forgotten what kindness felt like, even if he'd seldom used it. They said they were from a village near the border. Soldiers had burned everything. The woman, her name was Lydia, had lost her child on the road. She spoke little, her hands clasped tightly, as if holding onto a prayer that had already faded. Jacob listened, but said little. Words couldn't fight images. Instead, he built a fire, boiled a simple soup from what he had left, potatoes, salt, a few old carrots. The smell filled the room, warm and familiar. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. Later, when the rain finally came, they sat around the table in silence. Only the fire crackled, the storm whispering outside. Jacob watched as the older man Tomas ate, slowly, as if tasting peace itself. That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the rain move across the fields. Memories came quietly. Anna laughing beneath the apple tree in spring, her final breath warm in his hand. The world hadn't changed since then, only he had fallen silent. Near dawn, he heard footsteps. Lydia stood in the doorway, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice was barely there, but it carried more weight than any prayer. Jacob only nodded. The next day, he helped Tomas repair an old cart in the shed. It wasn't much, but better than walking. While they worked, Tomas asked, "Why do you help us?" "You don't know us, Steska." Jacob thought for a moment. Then he said quietly, "Because I know what it is to lose everything." They stayed 2 days. In that time, the silence grew lighter. Lydia smiled once when Jacob gave her an old scarf that had belonged to Anna. The young man, Jan, helped him chop wood, and when they finally left on the 3rd morning, this thing remained something heavier than words. Before they went, Tomas placed a small carved bird on Jacob's table, made of pale wood, simple but beautiful. "He flies, if you let him," he said. Jacob held the figure in his hand, as if it contained all the things he'd forgotten to feel. After they were gone, The house was quiet again. But the quiet was different now. Not empty alive. Jacob set the bird on the windowsill where the morning light could touch it. A week later. The village pastor came by with bread and news. People had seen strangers nearby, he said. Some claimed they were dangerous. You saw them, Jacob? He asked. Jacob looked at him for a long time. Then he said calmly, I saw people. The pastor nodded, said nothing more, and left. But the next evening, 3 men from the village came suspicious, armed. They didn't knock. They pounded. We're looking for those strangers, one said. They were here, weren't they? Jacob stood in the doorway. They've moved on. You shouldn't have taken them in, another growled. I did what was right. Right. The man sneered. You don't know what they are. Jacob took a step forward. I know they were hungry, and I know they reminded me of something you've forgotten. For a moment, there was only silence. Then they turned and left, their words too heavy to shout any more. When they were gone. Jacob sat on the threshold and looked out at the evening. The wind had quieted. Only the fields whispered softly. He thought of Anna, of the carved bird, a stranger's faint smile above a steaming bowl of soup. Later that night, took the lamp and went outside to the old apple tree. There, where the earth was soft, he placed the wooden bird in a hollow beneath the roots. Fly, he murmured. In spring, the tree bloomed stronger than ever before. Birds nested in its branches, and sometimes villagers came to pick apples. Jacob began speaking to people, again not much, but enough. When children asked why he always left a piece of bread on the windowsill, he said, for those still on the road. He grew old, as old men do, quiet, but no longer alone. One evening, as the sun sank and the wind turned warm, he sat on the bench outside his house. The sky was red, and in the shadow of the apple tree stood a bird. Not carved this time, but real. It lingered for a moment, then took flight. Jacob smiled. For the first time in many years, he closed the door behind him, not to shut out the world, but because he knew it had finally come home. And if you pass Jacob's house today, you'll see a new bird on the windowsill. Small, carved from dark wood. Not a sign of grief, but of memory. Some say it moves when the wind is right. Others say that's just imagination. But if you look closely, you'll notice something else. A house that breathes again.